welcome to Turn the Page, the official podcast of the Syosset Public Library.
This is Jessica from Syosset Library's Turn the Page podcast. I am your host today, and I'm really excited to have two authors here who you've both published separately, but you are buds, and you have worked together on this really juicy domestic thriller, Please Don't Lie. Welcome, Christina, Kline, and Burt.
Thank you. So thrilled to be here.
So thrilled to have you. So first of all, you are launching this book. It is a really well put together domestic thriller, very twisty, a lot of juicy secrets to uncover. And I'm curious how you two decided you were going to write this story together.
Anne and I have known each other for 25 years. We met in Montclair, New Jersey. Both of us were recent transplants from the Upper West Side of Manhattan and Brooklyn.
Brooklyn for me.
And we were new mothers. I had two already, young ones, and was pregnant with my third. Anne was pregnant with her first. And we met at a bookstore. Anne came up to me at an event I was doing. We quickly made a date for coffee, and before the week was out, we had sort of already discovered that we were going to be fast friends. But more than that we also had a lot of the same interests. We had gone to the same college, as it turned out, although we didn't know each other there. We both joined the same book club in town. We joined a writers group together. Anne was working on fiction, so was I. So it was from the beginning, we've sort of never stopped talking about books and literature since we started.
Absolutely. That's how it all got started. And then how we came to writing a novel together, which is, of course, pretty unusual for fiction writers with separate careers, is that we started collaborating pretty quickly on. We have co-edited a book of essays back in 2008. It's called About Face, Women Look in the Mirror and Talk About What They See. We really got to know each other's editorial styles very deeply through doing that process and respecting each other's kind of thoughts. And so you talk about how well this book is put together, and thank you for that. We knew we could do that. What we had to then learn is how we could build a fictional world together. And we liked collaborating so much that we were constantly seeking out ways and opportunities to do it. The most exciting moments came just a few years back. We actually participated together in a writer's room for a TV pilot where we really learned how to be fictional world building partners, and we loved the experience. Now, we were there for several months, and it went really quite high up the food chain in the production place. Ultimately, their vision for it was different than ours. The production company decided they wanted to pivot to a procedural, and we said, no, thank you. We're going to move on. But boy, did we learn together how to be co-authors, how to write together. And then, if I'll just sort of finish the progression for Please Don't Lie, Christina was approached to create a fictional podcast opportunity. This was a moment when podcasts were playing with original content, and we would be paid just for the idea. So she reached out to me, and we brainstormed really quickly on the idea. And then we showed it to our literary agent along with the contract, and we were ready to go. And he said, hey, are you sure that you want to give this away? What if you wrote this together as a novel? And here we are.
So the thing I want to emphasize that to me, people are so like, how would you ever write a novel with another person? But to us, the writer's room idea kind of crystallizes how it works for us. Nobody thinks twice about people writing screenplays together, writing series together, movies. But novels, for some reason, are a bridge too far. For us, it feels very much like we're in a writer's room all the time.
Yeah.
So it's just a collaborative process where you have to trust the other person and respect the other person fully in order for it to work. And so that, I think, those are the keys, I think, to our process.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that you bring up a really good point, because we do kind of see writing as often, when you were talking about novel writing, as something done in a vacuum. But when we talk about TV rooms or, scripts even. It is a team, and that is very true. And that's interesting, that's kind of what brought you together for this. So I was going to ask actually where the story of Haley and Please Don't Lie came from, but you kind of answered that specifically. Well, just really quickly before we talk about it anymore. So for listeners, so this is, as I mentioned, it's a domestic suspense novel, and it's about this young woman, Haley, who has lost both her parents and her sister in a series of tragedies. And she and her husband, who she met after the tragedies, are now moving from Florida, kind of where everything happened, to a cabin in the Adirondacks, which has a history for her husband and her husband's family, and that's kind of where everything starts to unravel. So we know that this came from you guys doing a potential fictional podcast together, which did have they did have like a stretch of moments, and I don't know if it's as popular now as it was. But where did Haley's specific story come from for you? It's such, a sad story. To think about, like you're the only person left in your family because your parents died, and then you lost your sister.
Well, I'll start by just saying that Anne and I both love the what if idea, the concept. And I think when you're a novelist, you're always in that space of reading the newspaper, looking at articles and thinking, my God, what if this happened to me? I'm stunned by how often it happens that someone tragically loses both their parents in some way or has a series of misfortunes. And I think we wanted to create a character who on the surface has it all together, but actually has experienced great trauma and carries that with her. And it's part of what makes her vulnerable in some ways to the things that are coming up in her life. And I think we were both fascinated with the idea of working with a character she's successful, she's got enough money, she lives in New York City, she seems to have it all together. She's pretty, but she actually carries a lot of sadness. And we were looking at the self-help industry in particular, and we wanted to write about someone who relies on self-help books to try to help her make sense of a very dark and complicated past. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah, that's right. Also, in this genre of psychological thriller, the exciting thing for us as writers is taking people who are recognizable, who have recognizable emotions. And there is none of us who ever hasn't had that feeling of I'm alone and I have no more resources, no matter what parts of our lives are or are not as, difficult or tragic as Haley's. But the genre forces you to take these deep characterizations and these deep human emotions and imagine the most extreme situation that could happen. And then you set your characters in motion and you have your protagonist. And what is she going to do when those worst nightmares actually might be coming true? So it's really exciting. The flip of that, I'll say, is, both of us come from a literary writing background. We both have MFAs. Christina's novels, my earlier work, much more literary. This is still, though, we bring that sensibility to what we're doing. And there is a grand tradition of alone orphaned young women in literary fiction. Think about Jane Eyre. Think about, all of these characters who are really blueprints for readers like us and like a lot of the people in the library and a lot of your listeners. What would Jane Eyre do if she was in a psychological thriller? She kind of is, right?
That's true. She is.
Yeah.
Oh, she so is. That is it really is though. And like all the way to the crazy, really out there ending.
Yes, exactly.
No spoilers for an over 100-year-old book.
Jane Eyre.
Right. Yeah. And no spoilers for ours, but we do also have a pretty wild ending.
You do. But I think like what I really wanted to know, and not giving a spoiler, is did one of you decide on the way that it was going to go? Or was it like the two of you kind of just being like, what if, what if, what if?
That's
What if,
such
what
a
if,
good
what if?
question.
It's a great question.
We were talking about this yesterday, and sometimes it's not until you're doing an interview that you kind of realize, oh, we did it this way. We outlined the entire thing and essentially created a screenplay, 120 pages, with dialogue and description and, all this atmosphere, et cetera. We were really trying to create a blueprint. But by the time we got to the last quarter of the book in real life, after even a draft or two, we started realizing that we could even do more twists than we had thought. And the way we had originally thought the book would end was not the way it actually ended in the end, because we got to know our characters and we got comfortable with each other, and we kind of realized that we could add more twists and turns.
Yeah.
And we just made it really exciting for ourselves.
Our principle that we have been writing by, that we came to in the middle of our process, is really the yes and principle. If you've ever done improv or theater, right, that's the classic rule. It's the only rule for improv. You have to say yes and, not no but, when somebody introduces a scenario and you're working with another person. Christina and I work with yes and. So we let ourselves, because of this rule, go as far as we possibly could with ideas. And sure, we'll reel them back if they don't work, but that gives us the opportunity to not ever truncate the other person's creative process, and to allow ourselves to open our own creative processes, because we're listening and hearing what we can build on from what the other one brings.
Every now and then, one of our ideas will hit a dead end, but it's just a detour, essentially. Almost always the work we've done to get to that leads us somewhere we didn't expect. So
it kind of mirrors the way we even got to writing this novel. And we have a second one coming out too, that's also set in the same fictional village, Crystal River, in the Adirondacks, which is the process we just described. Okay, we wrote, we edited a collection of essays. Okay, we tried a TV show. Okay, we tried a podcast. And those were all yes ands, and we could have seen them not working out as dead ends, but we never did. We really have the opportunity to look at it differently.
We almost started an imprint together. I mean, we've done, we worked on it for a year. I mean, I was asked to do it. I brought in Anne, and it didn't work out only because there were logistical problems, but we at one point were in the process of sort of becoming publishers. So there are many ways that Anne and I have collaborated over the years, and I just think that's a good lesson for people, that entrepreneurs experience this all the time, but we had one idea, then another, and this is the one that finally felt like it was completely right for us. But you never know. And so all we knew is that we worked well together. And so we weren't quite sure what form that would take.
Well, like I said, it really is just a great twisty thriller that's it's seamless, and it's seamlessly done. I actually was going to ask a little bit about Crystal River and how that came to you, because you're both from the city. And you did a really good job of just making this town feel very real.
Thank you. Well, yeah, I mean, yes, we both live in New York City, but we both have experiences living in and spending a lot of time in small towns similar to Crystal River. Christina in Maine, we're in Maine right now. Christina has a house here, grew up here.
We're doing an event here tonight.
Yeah, this is Bar Harbor, and we're in this bookstore called Hidden Barn Books. So that could, there could be a hidden barn in Crystal River.
There definitely is.
I grew up spending a lot of time going to the Berkshires in Massachusetts, and have lived in small towns. Yes, someplace close to your heart, Jessica. Yeah, it's beautiful there. So for us, we have Maine deep knowledge and Berkshire's deep knowledge. And so we decided we would find some place that we could both really understand and identify with, but that wasn't more belonging to one or the other. And so the Adirondacks were perfect. We went up to the Adirondacks and rented an Airbnb together for a week, working on this book to really take in the atmosphere, because we knew we wanted it to be a very atmospheric novel, and to really have the location be one of the characters and be very important. And Crystal River, we really feel like, has evolved to be a major player in this book.
That was such a fun week. We were in rural upstate, and We watched thrillers every night.
We did.
We worked all day and watched thrillers every night. We were very immersed, let's just say.
Sometimes we scared ourselves a little bit.
We did.
The other thing I want to touch on before we close, is, and again, just to let people know, because, we've talked a lot about the writer's process, but, Haley and her husband, things start to get very strange when she goes to this town and this cabin, and she starts to learn a lot of things that maybe she didn't know about, just the man that she married, but also, it almost sort of brings her through processing what she'd been through. It was just very well done. And again, I don't want to spoil anything, but you do work with something that I find tragic and also very it's evergreen, unfortunately, is media harassment of people who have been through the absolute worst. And now somebody has swooped in and decided that this is their meal ticket to fame. That is like one thing that Haley deals with. She's been through a mega tragedy, and unfortunately, people have decided to capitalize on it.
Yeah, we essentially, our book was ripped from the headlines in a lot of ways. As we were writing it, there were so many small, scandal, like terrible things that happen to people, and you see in real time how they're taken advantage of by the rapacious Daily Mail and other places like that. So Anne and I had so much material. Part of what our joy in doing this together is that we can comment on the zeitgeist, on the current day. And so, we were examining the self-help movement. We were looking at social media and really looking at how people get taken advantage of, and also how word spreads quickly. In the next book we're taking on the tradwife movement. And our central character is or what happens in the first scene is that we have a tradwife influencer who disappears. So it is just really fun for us to be absorbed in the moment and in social, and sort of looking critically at social media.
And Jessica, what you point out is something that we are very interested in Please Don't Lie and in our next one, which is when people come in with their own needs to other people's tragedies, and they try to make the people who've had the tragedy trust them. What does that do to the sense of trust in general that people have? Who's on my side? Who wants to tell my story? Who doesn't want to tell my story? The characters all in some ways grapple with understanding who to trust and who is actually trying to deceive them. And that's a huge theme in this book.
Thank you so much. Definitely check out Please Don't Lie. It is great. And I can't wait to hear more from you. You both are like so much fun to talk to. You must have the best time.
We actually did. And you're great to talk to as well, Jessica. And I just am so happy for the opportunity to talk to Syosset library readers. We love libraries and library patrons and are super, super happy to be here.
We're super happy to have you. Thank you for coming. This was Jessica with Syosset Library, and we are going to close this chapter of Turn the Page.
It's time to close this chapter of Turn the Page. Join us for the next episode.